Good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
Oh, you're so cool, Brewster! Everybody's a suspect! Hey, Ted, where the hell's Corkscrew? Don't fuck with the Chuck!
Welcome back to Toe Tag Reviews. I'm Chuck, and today we're going to be talking about 1985's Return of the Living Dead, directed by Dan O'Bannon. Tobe Hooper was supposed to direct this movie. He left the project to go direct his project Life Force, which I haven't seen. The producers also hated the fact that zombies ran, because traditionally up until that point, they were the slow, stiff-moving zombies, but they're actually sprinting, and it kind of paved the way for movies like 28 Days Later, like World War Z, and the director wanted to give something new and fresh to the audience, and as a director, that's kind of what you want to do as a filmmaker. That's what you want to do, is push the boundaries and push the envelope. Apparently, this movie was based on real events. They say in the beginning of the movie, there was a couple articles that said that this truly was based on real events. And if that's the case, then I gotta do my homework because I gotta find out what's going on. The movie actually begins on July 3rd, 1984, and it's Freddy's first day. He works at You Need a Medical Supply, which is like a little play on words. And if Freddy looks familiar, he's played by Tom Matthews, aka my boy Tommy Jarvis from Friday Part 6. We have his uncle Frank kind of show him the ropes, give him the tour of the grounds and the inventory and stuff. We're introduced to a couple misfits. The iconic, legendary queen herself, Linnea Quigley, as Trash. We get Chuck, we get Spider. If he looks familiar too, he's Demon in Friday Part 5. But we get Scuzz, Tina, Chuck, Casey, and my favorite, his name is Suicide. And he is the classic 80s punk rocker. He's leathered out, chain dangling from his ear to his nose, and just hates everything, hates the world, always aggressively an asshole for no reason. You can't really like the guy, but I like him. He's just a fun stereotype to me. They're waiting for Freddy to get off work so they can go party. They end up going to the cemetery to party. Frank ends up telling him about the movie Night of the Living Dead and how that was based on a true event as well. He was telling him about how they got a shipment of zombies mixed up and it got sent to their company, so they keep them in the basement. And on his first day, he gets to see a real-life zombie, but his Uncle Frank has the bright idea to go show him, you don't do that. You don't do that. He's pretty much telling Freddy that it's a military-grade drum, these things are unbreakable, and he fucking slaps it. The seal breaks, and all this gas sprays all over him. They get knocked out. The zombie that's inside that barrel, he ends up escaping, and he is the iconic Tar Man. Frank and Freddy wake up and they're not feeling too good. They're throwing up, they're super sweaty, they're pale white, pink around the eyes. They look like shit. They realize that that gas had brought the cadaver back to life. It ends up attacking them. Bert takes a pickaxe, stabs the cadaver right in the back of the head, realize that it's not dying. They cut its head off with a hacksaw, still not dying. They end up taking the body parts over to his buddy Ernie's crematorium. But here we're going to get the VHS rewind moment, and it is the iconic dance from Trash, where she's naked in the cemetery. That part is just so cool. Not only is it hot as hell, but it's really fucking cool that they're partying in a cemetery, man. Like, I can't wrap my head around that. They end up going to the crematorium. They tell Ernie about the rabid weasels.
What the hell is in those bags?
Rabid weasels.
What?
He doesn't buy it for a split second. Bert ends up telling him that they're zombies. He agrees to torch the bodies. As the smoke goes up, the thunderstorm happens, and it brings all that smoke back down and into the ground, and all of a sudden, a whole horde of zombies show up out of nowhere. And it takes their problem from here to there real quick. But we see Tina, she leaves the cemetery to go get Freddy at his work and realizes that no one's there, so she's kind of touring the grounds, and she goes down to the basement. We get to see Tar Man, Suicide, and the gang, the Suicide Boys. But Tar Man ends up killing Suicide by biting him right in the forehead. Paramedics show up, and they take the vitals of Frank and Freddy and realize that they're dead. Their body temperature is 70. They don't have a pulse, but yet they're still alive. The gang leaves to go to the cemetery, but now the dead are rising. Trash freezes up with fear, and she ends up dying by the zombies. Chuck and Casey end up getting separated from the group. They end up going to Freddy's work. The gang ends up going to the crematorium, and the zombies end up getting the paramedics. And we get the famous
10 more
I like this scene a lot because not only is it funny, but I like the idea of them being smart. They're still coherent. They can still form a conversation. They're not just brain dead zombies, you know what I mean? They can actually talk to you. This is what also separates this movie from others, in my opinion. But Scuzz ends up dying, and I love his scream when he ends up dying. It sounds like a little bitch, top of his lungs. But they end up taking half a female zombie. Ernie puts out a metal pole and straps it to the table. This is what I'm talking about. They form a conversation and they're going back and forth with dialogue. I really like the effects of the zombie, the way its mouth is moving and its head's moving. It's really fucking cool. She ends up saying that they eat the brains to make the pain go away. And when Ernie says, "What pain?" he says, "The pain of being dead."
I can feel myself rot.
I don't know, that hit me for some reason, you know? Trash ends up becoming a zombie, and she looks super sick. The way her mouth is, like, real big when she's eating people. She's still running around the town naked, so that's always fucking hilarious. The gang ends up deciding to quarantine Freddy and Frank, but Tina ends up staying in the chapel with them. The police show up, and the horde of zombies end up attacking the police.
Send more cops.
Super funny. Freddy and Frank officially turn into zombies. He goes to attack Tina, but the gang shows up and saves her. But I love how foamy Freddy's mouth is in this one when he's yelling Tina and brains and everything. It's just foaming at the mouth. I like this part though because like Ernie goes to nail the door shut, but out of nowhere he just breaks his foot. I don't know, like he's nailing the door and then he walks around the gang and he just falls down and broke his foot out of nowhere. To me, that just doesn't make sense. Spider and Bert take the police car and go get help. They get reunited with Chuck and Casey. Tina and Ernie hide in the attic, and Frank decides to kill himself by burning himself alive. Bases are loaded, and Bert knocks the tar man's head completely out of left field, baby. Home run! But a whole horde of zombies show up and the entire police force, and we just get to see how awesome this whole sequence is with the zombies killing the police officers. Like, it's fucking awesome. Bert ends up calling the military. Next thing you know, they nuke the fucking town. It's just a really strange and bizarre ending. And then it shows recaps of the storm with all the smoke going back into the ground, and they reuse like the same scene, which doesn't make sense to me either. It is what it is. This has been my review for Return of the Living Dead, a absolute fantastic movie. Great effects, great acting. I would say Frank is probably the most annoying. He's constantly screaming and whining the whole time. I can't say anything really bad about this movie besides the ending. It just doesn't make sense to me. This has been my review for Return of the Living Dead. Don't forget to like, subscribe until then. See you later.